Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. With just 4 weeks to go, how does the Commonwealth Games Federation regard Delhi's preparedness for the Games? That's the central issue I shall discuss today with the CEO of the Federation, Mike Hooper. Mr. Hooper, with just 28 days to go, are you worried by Delhi's state of preparedness, or with each passing day, are your confidence levels rising?
Look, I think it's fair to acknowledge that there have been issues all the way along for the delivery of these games, a lot of them linked to the delivery of the games venues, which are still creating ongoing ripple effects for others to get their work done, be it the installation of overlay, be it the installation of the venue-based teams, etc. But look, I'm one that's a pragmatist. We've got 28 days left to go. We need to focus on making sure that the things that matter to the athletes are put right. Yes, there are issues, there have been issues, and there's more work to be done. We have to recognise that, and we have to also ensure that everybody, be it the Delhi Police, be it the Delhi government, be it the organising committee, the contractors, etc., has to just focus on doing their job. But yes, there's still more to be done. It's going to go down to the wire. I'm sure there will be issues as we go through the games, and the key to a successful games is ensuring that we have the systems in place, as in here in India, to respond to those.
Let's look at the issues that still remain, and let's start with the stadiums. The Hindu says that all is not well with Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, which is the principal stadium. The paper says that several parts of the ground have either capsized or are threatening to do so, and members of the organising committee have actually admitted to the paper they're worried. What exactly is the situation in that key stadium?
Well, to my knowledge, there has been some subsidence through the heavy rains, etc., in the grassed area in the middle of the track, and that's being addressed. But certainly, if there's any damage in the track itself, then it will have to be recertified by the IAAF, because it was certified previously back in July. But if there's been damage or subsidence on the track, that would need to be looked at. Now, coming back to venue safety, Jalal Nehru or any other venue, clearly we are all aware of the CVC report from about a month back, and the implications of that report suggesting substandard materials and fabricated test results. That's still a great concern to us, and despite many promises made by the government agencies and others to deliver the documentation to validate and to verify that all the building codes, etc., have been met and they are safe, and the fire codes have been, fire safety certificates have been issued, and the building completion certificates issued. We still don't have them. So that remains a concern to us today. I am hopeful that, based on a discussion with Mr. Kalmadi recently, that we will have those early in the week.
Have you set a deadline by when you want these safety certificates? Because it's a critical issue that's missing.
It's a very critical issue, and it's one that should be easy to allay the fears of the Commonwealth Games associations. They should be there. I mean, obviously you've got to have them. They must follow the law.
So is there a deadline for having them?
Well, obviously you can't occupy a venue if it doesn't have a building completion certificate. So, people are due to arrive, for example, in the Games Village on the 16th of September. So they can't occupy the Games Village unless there's a building completion certificate on that development.
You could be heading towards a crisis on the 16th if you don't get these certificates.
Well, for sure. I mean, that's very obvious that could happen.
And what about the track? If the track at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium is damaged, as you suspect could be the case, have you got enough time to repair it and certify that it's repaired?
Well, certainly I think that is the case, and the repair work is underway on the track.
And will it happen in time?
I understand it has been done, undertaken. Whether it's been recertified or not, I don't know yet.
Sadly, the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium is not the only one that's supposed to have problems. I'm told that the Yamuna Sports Complex and even the shooting ranges are both considerably behind schedule. Is the archery field at the first and the ground at the second acceptable?
Well, I think, clearly whatever the issues are, because we've been going on about the completion of the venues and sign-off by international federations, etc., for the field of play, etc., has to occur. Now, that must be done. I mean, again, we look at the time we have available now, 28 days. It has to comply with all international federation requirements, and if it needs signing off, it has to be signed off, and they've got to do it.
Let me put it like this. Just hearing you speak, there's a long list of things that need to be done, some of which are very critical, as you admitted, such as the safety certificates for the stadiums. You've got 28 days, but you have no agreed deadlines for delivery of these certificates. So can it all happen?
Well, it must. I mean, that's just the message I'd like to send to all the government agencies.
But are you worried?
Well, of course it's a concern that we don't have them. As I say, I believe we will get them. So, you know, I'd like to
But is this a
rest
case
assured.
of hope over experience?
Well, it may well be, will prove to be so.
What happens if you don't get them?
Well, clearly, if we don't get the documentation, then you can't use the venues. If they don't get a building completion certificate,
In which case, what happens to the games?
Well, then a particular event may be in trouble. Maybe. But let's not speculate on that. Clearly, the government agencies are aware what is required. The organising committee has said to me that early next week I should have all of these. So the sooner we get them, the sooner we can allay people's fears on this matter.
But we're at a very worrying point where actually it is even possible to speculate about the possibility that one or two events could be in trouble. That is a sad situation to be in.
Well, it's a concern, but I think, as I say, I still believe we will get them, and we will get them before they're put to use.
What about beyond the stadium? The actual scoring systems, I'm told, are not as yet fully in place. I'm told the technology that will be responsible for such things as storing data, for recording timings, even the cameras and communication are not finally ready. Aren't these things unacceptably delayed?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes, but we are where we are. And, you know, clearly instead of running around like a headless chook panicking about it, we've got to focus on getting it right in time for the 3rd of October. Now, those that are responsible for delivering the TSR, timing, scoring and results, equipment, etc., need to get on and do their job.
How much time have they got?
They've got till the 3rd of October, obviously.
But is that enough time?
Well, it has to be done. It has to be done in time for the games. The dates will not change.
As you said, there's no point running around like headless chickens, but are panic levels silently beginning to rise?
Well, I think stress levels are certainly starting to rise all around, and they have been for some time. But, you know, again, I think we have to manage that. We have to look at the things that matter and address the things that matter. Get the village right, get the transport right, get the venues right and the delivery of the sport right, and get the broadcast right. The other things, well, they're nice to have.
Audiences listening to you will be suddenly deeply concerned because on so many levels, so many things simply haven't happened. They're going to question whether they will happen in time. They're going to then ask themselves, will there be an event or two that's in danger? Is it possible that come the 3rd of October, one or two things in several stadiums still may be incomplete? And if that's possible, would that be acceptable?
Well, I don't think that will be the case in relation to actually stopping the competition going on. If there are minor things that need to be addressed, then obviously they will address them. But it comes down to securing the building certificates, etc., completion certificates.
That's critical.
Of course it is. It's critical.
Let's then come to one area where even members of the organising committee, although in private, admit that there are serious problems, the Games Village. I'm told that the Games Village is substantially behind time. But what does substantially behind time mean?
I have no idea because, you know, Mr. Fennell and I viewed the Games Village ourselves on August 18th. And certainly at that point, I think it was 24 towers had been completed and handed over and had been to the organising committee, etc. I understand it's a substantial greater figure today as we speak today. Needless to say, though, that village becomes live on the 16th of October.
Which is 11 days away. 11 days away.
Exactly, and 16th September. And so therefore there's a lot of work to be done, and the developer, the DDA and the developer need to get off the site and get the work completed.
In fact, let me just pick up on that thought. In exactly 11 days on the 16th of September, you could have potentially as many as 700 people coming to occupy the village if 10 officials per country turn up. Is the village in a position to receive 700 in 11 days' time?
Well, it won't be 700. It'll be more like 300 to 400.
But even so, that's a substantial number.
Of course. And certainly, you know, you'll recall Mr. Fennell at his press conference when he was here on his visit expressed concerns about the completion of the dining and the catering facility, the main dining. You know, there is a casual dining facility being put in the residential zone that could cater for those people if indeed it's not really.
When you say casual, is that a temporary measure before the proper one is put in place?
It's a casual dining facility that would operate throughout the games.
But as you say, the dining facilities and the catering facilities were a cause of concern when Mr. Fennell was here in August. You know and I know that in fact the catering contract was only finalized somewhere towards the second half of July. The kitchens will be actually handed over to Delaware on the 3rd of September. Can they be up and running by the 16th to feed 300 or 700?
Well, my understanding through speaking with Delaware North is that they do need 2 weeks or 10 days to 2 weeks to actually commission everything.
There's not a day to spare on that time.
There's not a day to spare.
So can they do it? I mean, are you worried? You could have 700 or 300 people who won't be fed.
We are faced with what we're faced with, and there's 24 hours in a day, and it means we've got to work 24 hours a day, and we've got to do that.
Are you biting your nails?
Well, it's a bad habit, but not just to do with Delhi.
Beyond the catering, beyond the lack of completion certificates, beyond the safety concerns, how do the facilities and the amenities at the Games Village in Delhi compare with those which you've previously seen in Melbourne or Sydney or even Beijing?
Well, my view, and I support Mr. Fennell's comments on this, this village and those apartments and the space, how spatial they are, the quality of the apartments, the ratio of 2 per room, the bathroom ratios, etc. Assuming everything works, and as it should, it will be the best games village we have ever had, the best accommodation we have ever had for a games, for sure.
But the big question is, can you get the safety certificates in time? Can the catering be up and running? Can the kitchens be functioning? And can everything be completely perfect in 11 days?
It has to be. It's as simple as that, and that's the message to everyone who is responsible, be it the DDA, be it the MRMGF, be it the contractors, the overlay suppliers, etc. The time is what it is. The date of the games does not change. There's no question of changing the dates.
Is there any question of postponing the games?
Absolutely not.
So 1 or 2 events may suffer, but the games have to happen.
Well, we can't speculate whether they'll suffer or not, but the games will happen for sure.
Let's take a break at that point. I want to come back and talk about other challenges that you face. Challenges that might even be beyond your control, such as dengue, traffic, and security. We'll be back in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an exclusive interview with the CEO of the Commonwealth Games Federation, Mike Hooper. Mr. Hooper, let's come to the fear of dengue. With possibly as many as 1,200 cases compared to just a handful last year, with dengue widely believed to be peaking in October, and with the meteorological department predicting excessively heavy rainfall in September, how do you assess the threat of dengue?
Well, I think, you know, it's well known to everybody that dengue is a seasonal problem that you have here in Delhi and India. It's
worse this year than it's been for the last 5.
Yes, of course, and we're aware of that. And I think it comes back to prevention is better than the cure, and therefore we have to ensure that in and around the games village, in and around the games venues, etc., all appropriate measures are taken.
Are they happening?
Well, we've been told that. I mean,
but have you been able to check it out for yourself?
Well, when Mr. Fennell was here again in August, we communicated with the CMO, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Bharatendra Singh from the organising committee, and he provided us with the details of what the various preventative measures were taking place in and around all the venues. For example, the fogging, the removal of excess water, the removal of debris.
In terms of plans and theories, those are excellent. Are they happening?
No, we were told they were happening. Now, Mr. Fennell, you know, there was some recent speculation in the media that we'd issued an advisory on dengue. We hadn't issued an advisory. What Mr. Fennell did was we did a report on the games, his visit on the games, security,
I read
venues,
that in the papers.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so what we've said is that certainly when we went around, we did not, it seemed effective, the measures seemed effective.
But now, 2 weeks later?
Well, 2 weeks later, I'm not aware of anything in and around the venues, but certainly it is an issue that the preventative measures must take place, and we're certainly saying to people, saying when you come here, clearly use repellents, etc. It's common sense.
Is there a danger that because of the fear of dengue, sizable numbers of athletes and officials might actually decide not to come, thus undermining your games?
Well, I think, you know, there's been lots of speculations on lots of reasons why athletes may or may not come to the games, whether it's performance issues, whether it's security
issues,
issues,
But dengue is a particular concern.
Dengue is a concern.
So is that a danger that people might
there's a lot of areas in the world where you travel to that there are vector-borne diseases and other things that you need to take precautions against.
So you're hoping that people will come?
I'm sure they will come.
Has Delhi got enough preparation in place? I'm talking about hospitals, doctors and medicine in case, God forbid, dengue hits athletes, officials and tourists.
Well, certainly the advice we have from the CMO is that
have you got any way of double checking?
Oh, I will confer further with him between now and the games, obviously.
And are you also going to personally make an effort to check that the defogging and all the other devices that are taking as precautionary measures are being taken?
Well, I'll follow up on it. I mean, I don't know what myself, I'm not qualified enough to know whether they've done something or not done something, but we will follow up accordingly.
Let's then come to the second big challenge you face, the challenge of Delhi's roads and the flow of traffic. Now, I know this was an issue of particular concern to Mr. Fennell when he came in August, but since then, reports of roads capsizing or caving in have proliferated. We know that the rains in September are going to be excessive and add to the problem. How do you assess this problem?
Well, I think we've always known right from the get-go, right from the award of the games, that traffic in Delhi is a substantial challenge. One that the traffic police and Delhi police, etc., are working very hard to overcome, particularly to ensure the smooth movement of athletes and officials to and from the village, to their events and training.
Are you satisfied with the plans they're putting in place?
Well, if they work, yeah.
If they work.
But then the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? Is when they actually, the implementation. We can't speculate today and say that won't work. Certainly on the plans they've presented to us, etc., there's no reason to doubt with the dedicated lanes that they won't work.
Well, I'll come to the dedicated lanes in a moment's time because they're very controversial with the residents of Delhi. But first of all, are you, as far as the plans go, reasonably confident that athletes and officials will be able to move around fairly quickly and fairly easily?
Set against the plans we've seen and been presented to, yes.
The problem with the dedicated lanes that give you a sense of comfort and assurance is actually they infuriate the residents of Delhi, who anyway are beginning to dread the games. Several are beginning to curse the games because of the chaos in the city. When those dedicated lanes happen from the 20th of September, that animosity could rise. Does that worry you, that you're coming to a city where people are fed up with the games and dreading the prospect of them happening?
Well, I think there's a wide generalisation you've just made. I've seen surveys that say quite the opposite, that 90% of people surveyed in a particular survey, and I know they're subjective, support the games and want them to be a success for India. But look, clearly the traffic is going to be an issue. We know that, it's acknowledged, and obviously by providing dedicated lanes, that adds to it. But we need to get the athletes and officials to their events on time. Now, public transport is what is being encouraged. Buy a ticket to the games, come to the games, free on the metro, free on the buses.
The second, or rather the third challenge that you face is the challenge of security. It's no secret that the games present a tempting target to terrorists. According to some newspapers, they even present a tempting target to the Maoists. Are the necessary security precautions in place?
Yeah, I believe so. I go right back to the original...
When you say you believe so, how can you double check? I mean, what gives you the confidence?
Well, let me go there. Quite simply, you know, right from the get-go, the government of India made it very clear that we will deliver a safe and secure environment for the Commonwealth Games to take place in. There has been nothing insofar as the planning and our interaction with Delhi police and others that would suggest anything other than that. Now, our own security advisors have come here on regular occasions, 9 times in total, and certainly from a planning perspective have echoed the comments from the Met Police and others who've made comments when they've come in, the ISGL conference that was held here in July, all saying that planning is on track. But again, you're right, it comes down to the implementation, and the proof is in the delivery.
Problem is the implementation. As you perhaps know, the Home Minister just a couple of days ago revealed that in fact the security agencies won't have access to the stadiums till perhaps the 8th of September, and then they're going to have only 1 week to put their systems and arrangements in place. They wanted 4 weeks, they're getting 1. Are you confident that in 25% of the time they need, they can actually do the job?
Well, bottom line is they're going to have to. Now, the reason they're delayed, obviously, is because other government agencies didn't deliver the venues. So they have to do their work. We all have our challenges. There are many of them associated with delivering these games. What we want to see come October 14th is the athletes saying these were successful games.
Let me put it like this. You're saying repeatedly that things have to happen. Safety certificates have to be done. The stadiums have to be completed. The catering has to be ready. The games village has to be ready. Now, security arrangements have to be ready.
Of course.
But the problem is, what if they aren't?
Well, again, we will have to face those issues as we go through. There's a games team management group that incorporates all the stakeholders that has been put in place throughout the games. And as and when things perhaps don't happen, then it's putting right the counts and making sure that they're fixed.
You've got your back against the wall at the moment, haven't you?
It's challenging, absolutely.
Let me put it like this. Suresh Kalmari and Jayapal Reddy have repeatedly said that these are going to be the best ever Commonwealth Games. Do you share that confidence, or would you hesitate to put it so strongly?
I don't even make these sorts of judgments. You know, people speculate like this. At the end of the day, the athletes are the ones who will decide whether these games were a success or not. And let's ask them on the 14th of October.
This is very interesting. The CEO of the Commonwealth Games Federation refuses to endorse the claim of both Suresh Kalmari and Jayapal Reddy that these will be the best ever games. There's clearly a message in that refusal to endorse it.
You can speculate as you see, but clearly we've never said it for Melbourne, we've never said it for Manchester. At the end of the day, the
and you're
others
damned
will be the
if you're
judge.
going to say it for Delhi just now.
I'm not going to say it for anyone.
Mike Hooper,
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.